Yeah, baby! Kind of stuff. He's super famous. He's like one of the kings of the nerds. Give it up for Kevin Smith. What's up, baby? What's up, man?
How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well.
I don't know that I would agree with super famous. I'm that person that people, like, when I was a kid, I would watch a lot of game shows with my father, and there was a guy who was on all these game shows named Charles Nelson Riley.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when I was a kid, like, everyone else in the game show, you're like, oh, they're from this TV show, they're from this movie. But him, I never knew what he was from, so I would always ask my dad, like, what is Charles Nelson Riley famous for? And my dad was like, he's famous for being Charles Nelson Riley and stuff. So
yeah, like Match Game and...
I grew up to be the modern-day Charles Nelson Riley, where... There are some people don't even like know that I have a film career. Like, it's really nice when people are like, what, you made a movie? I thought you just interviewed people on podcasts. I was like, no, I do that now, but back in the day, I used to be very productive in the film business and stuff. So yeah, it's weird. I never feel famous though at all, or like a celebrity. So it was weird when you were introducing me, I was like, oh, I thought I was going on. It sounded like you were describing somebody way more interesting than me. But it's nice to be here. Fucking weird to be here because this is the place I would imagine I would have been had I been born like a minute after I was born, right? Like essentially,
yeah.
It really was. Like Clerks, I benefited by being a minute ahead of the internet. Like I sang my song in late 93, early 94, and that was about a year before it was hitting colleges hard, the internet and stuff, and about a year and a half before I would get on the internet myself, and that would change everything. But when I started doing my stuff, when I made Clerks, it was all about, like, I don't know how to sing my song. I don't know how to get myself out there, how to tell my story. I'd loved movies my whole life and stuff, loved to sit there and watch them. Never once thought about making them. You know, I was made by people in Hollywood or New York or something like that. And even though I was in New Jersey, which is right next to New York, I'm like, oh, you could never do something like that in New Jersey. And then one day I saw Richard Linklater's film Slacker. And that changed everything for me. You know, they say, like, in order to be it, you got to see it. And I saw it. I saw Richard Linklater make a flick. He's a dude in Austin, Texas, who made his movie with a bunch of friends, had no famous people in it, had no three-act structure, just followed characters throughout the course of the day in their community in Austin, Texas. And that lit my fire. You know, everybody has that thing, the thing where you go from being a spectator to wanting to be in the game. And everybody in this room, of course, is a content generator, just like me. And so I just want to shout out and give you appreciation for the fact that, like, as people that are makers, I know it must be fucking killing you to sit here and watch somebody talk. But, you know, sometimes that's what we do. Sometimes we have to listen to others and stuff like that. But I was the same way. I saw somebody doing something that made me go like, well, I think I can do that. That doesn't seem that difficult. I'm a person, they're a person. Seems like we could both pull it off. They could pull it off. Maybe I could figure it out. So we went and made Clerks, man, and like 2 minutes later, the internet happened. So 2 minutes after I did my thing, there would be millions of me. You know, it was there. It was a bunch of people sitting there going, I want to do that stuff. And the internet gave us a way to kind of do it. But I started just a minute before that. So it gives me just like an inch of credibility in a mainstream media world, because at one point that's where I lived and breathed the most. But early on I jumped, I mean, I always kept my feet in there, of course, but early on I kind of jumped onto the internet because I love the idea of being able to talk to somebody who bought a ticket to one of these dopey movies I made. Back in the day, you didn't know how you were doing, other than, like, you know, what critics would write about or what the box office would say in terms of receipts, and that doesn't really tell the full story. I wanted to find out, like, what is in the mindset of some fucker on a Friday night who is like, I could have spent good money on a fun thing, but I chose your movie. Like, I want to get into the nitty gritty of that. Like, later on, there would be comment sections on the internet, and so you can have feedback and whatnot. Right. But back then, we didn't really have anything. So my friend Ming Chen, the guy who was on Comic Book Men with us, he built this website, viewaskew.com, 1995, late 95 we opened it. And right before we opened it, I was like, hey man, can we do something like a Q&A? I love doing Q&A, like where people can ask me stuff and I can just answer, like maybe do it with a camera. And he goes, the technology is not there yet. He's going, but I could put up a message board. I said, what's that? He's like, it's a place where people could put whatever they want, write something to you, ask you a question, and you can answer it like at your leisure. You could get to it, like it doesn't have to happen right away. It's just always sitting there.
Right.
So like in the middle of the night, you can go start answering questions.
So
and I remember feeling
he came up with Twitter.
Yeah, essentially. But I remember having this weird feeling of like, oh my God, I'll never be alone again. Because I'll be able to talk to people like who knew something about what I did, can have something to say about what I did. I wanted to make, and I wanted people to react to it. That's at heart, that's what I am. For years, they've been like, he's a director, and then later on, they're like, he's a podcaster. I'm just a maker. I just like to create shit. There's two paths in this life, right? There's creation and destruction. And the destruction path is littered with fucking people. It's crowded. You can't move on the destructive path because that's the easiest path. It's easy to go down that. It's easy to sit on a path and like poke fun at others and make fun of what they're doing, or worse, try to derail them from doing something creative or something like that. Creation path is always wide open, man. There's like 4 lanes, and you could breeze down it, but people don't like to take it because it requires you put a little something of yourself in it.
Right.
That's what I love about this generation is like, we're all self-centered in the good way, in the best possible way. Back in the day, self-centered was a horrible term, right?
Yeah.
Now you have to be self-centered in order to be like, you know what? I'm going to put myself on camera. I'm going to start talking about my life. I'm going to watch myself or watch or play video games or something like that. Figuring out how you get to sing your song, how you get to express yourself. And there's really no wrong way as long as you're not like killing children on camera or something like that.
Right.
You know?
Well, okay, you heard it here.
Yeah, don't
not
kill kids. Like,
okay, that's good. A good tip. A good tip. It's like you were reading my like interview questions because one of them was, like me, you remember the time before the internet.
Yeah, I remember
a time. How did you go about getting blah 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 blah.
I remember a time on the internet, and I wonder how many other people in the room remember. But I was there when it started, right? Like I was there when cable TV started. I was there when the internet started. So there was a time when somebody would be like, "Oh, have you been to the internet?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I visited every site."
Yeah, totally.
And you were being absolutely factual. Like you were bored with the internet because you're like, oh, I've seen it all. And then one day it became the ocean that it is now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember a life without the internet, and it was, you know, a lot of people could point to like, well, what has the internet really done for us? You can always look at it through a negative prism at anything and find, you know, bad in a situation. Anything that puts us all in touch with each other can't necessarily be a bad thing.
Right,
you know, if people misuse that for whatever reason, fuck them. But like, just being able to reach out to like-minded individuals. Like when I was a kid, you couldn't have the world we live in now. I liked comic books. No one else around me did. I didn't have anyone to relate to. I couldn't find my tribe. Internet allowed me to find my tribe. Suddenly I could be like, does anyone else cry when they read Batman? You know, and you get a sea of responses.
A full room of those people like that found each other.
Yes. So yeah, I remember when there was no internet, and it was a dark, ugly time.
You do a lot of different cons and that kind of stuff. Have you ever been to a video game-centric con?
Not to, I mean, no, have I? Recently I went to a PUBG event, which was awesome. These guys who were really fucking fantastic let me be on their team, and I was the dead weight that they were like, protect him at all costs! Like,
you were the package.
I was, very much so. And
get the VIP.
They let me feel like I was not in charge, but that I was part of the group and not just, you know, fucking cannon fodder. And we wound up winning, man. We won like a golden frying pan and shit. It was really hot.
Nice.
I had such a good fucking time. They're like, you gonna do this again? I was like, only if I could do it with you 4 guys. Like, they were expert. So no, I've been to like Comic-Con a zillion times, VidCon years ago. This is my first TwitchCon, first gaming con I think I've ever been at.
Hell yeah, man.
Thank you. And I am not like, our gaming worlds are separated by a couple decades. I'm, you know, the biggest gaming experience of my life still to date was Pitfall back in 1982. So that changed everything for me. That was an adventure that went on 20 fucking minutes. Like it had a clock on the game and you were like, I can't believe I'm almost at the end of 20 minutes. And nowadays, you play games that go on for like 18 hours. So, yeah, that's a different world than I'm used to. Yeah. One of my favorite games of all time, though, this is showing how fucking old I am. I was a big Sega Genesis guy, but I also got... all
right, interview over. I'm done.
Sorry. But for one red hot minute, like, you know, everyone's like, you got to get, when everything they started making PlayStation, they started making GameCube, they started making, what's the other big one? Thank you, Xbox.
Xbox. Dreamcast.
I went with a Sega Saturn.
Okay, yep.
Which came out for a red hot minute because they had Virtua Fighter, which was my favorite game in the world. I used to play it in an arcade, so I was like, I could play this shit at home? Oh my God. And I remember playing it with Jason Lee, the guy from the movies. He was in a bunch of movies I did. And I was showing him how to play Virtua Fighter, and he fell in love with it. And he had just also simultaneously, this dates me incredibly, but he had just recently gotten AOL as well. So we're playing the game, and he's like, Kev, I got a disc, and they gave me 100 free hours of AOL. And I was like, you like it? And he goes, they tell me I've got mail when I've got mail. Because on AOL, when he got mail, it's like, you've got mail.
Oh, yeah.
So while we were playing Virtua Fighter, whenever he punched me, he was going, you've got mail, you've got mail. But most of my gaming experience now has everything to do with Jason Mewes, the guy I stand next to in life and in movies, the guy who played Jay to my Silent Bob. He's a massive gamer. He games like on Facebook and whatnot. In fact, when I was coming here, he was like, oh my God, you're going to TwitchCon. Please find fucking Ninja. And I was like, yes, I will. And then what? And he's like, ask him to play with me.
You heard it here, buddy.
If anyone sees Ninja, please pass on that the guy who played Jay really wants to play video games with him online. He was very sincere about it. Jason never asks me for anything. That was the one. He's like, you know, I don't ask for nothing. This is my ask of the century. Find Ninja. So somebody please find Ninja.
You're talking about AOL. I don't know if you remember, but some of us do. They recently, in the past couple of years, took down SMS AIM.
Yeah, just like late this year.
Your AIM name?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Would you mind telling us?
I mean, I guess I could share, but what if somebody hacks it and they're like, look at all these old fucking messages and shit like that?
I didn't think that was a thing.
It could be, man. They could find out all the times I jerked off with my wife on AIM and stuff. Because that's all I used AIM for. I taught her how to use it, and I was just like, look, I'm on the road a lot. We need this. And so there are archived, like, some horrible conversations. Because when you're, you know, fucking around with your wife online and shit, you don't just be like, you and I are going to have that good old marital sex. You know, it's fucking filthy. It's just like, you're going to invite a fucking soccer team over, and they're going to fuck me while you watch. And so... You don't want like somebody hacking that and then presenting it to your 19-year-old daughter going like, your parents are freaks. So it's best to keep that hidden. But it's very closely tied with my AOL address, which that's my email. I still use my AOL account because it was the first one I had. It's almost a point of pride. I've had it for like 24 years now. And that was longer than I had my childhood phone number. And if I could have that back, I would totally do it because I remember that. And I'll share that, 2910173. Hack whoever lives there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've held on to my AOL address for so long. And so much so that, and it shows you what a different world it was. When we opened the VSQ website in late 95, early 96, I had everyone who worked there and was in the movies worked on the movie. Scott, Mosier, David, our cinematographer, Dave Klein, the stars, Jeff, Brian. They all had a page with their little bios and stuff. And on my page, you would just click on it, and it was my AOL address. So you could just reach out to me, and I'd be like, hey, buddy, what's up? So, you know, that's how I got a lot of fucking spam in my email account. Like, I get so much email about, like, we got to stop these Democrats. And I'm like, me? People put me on all sorts of fucking spam lists and shit like that.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I was tempted to pick up a pill that might make my dick bigger because they've just kept fucking hammering me over and over again
until...
From
experience, don't do it.
It don't work, right?
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Well,
You know what does work? This is weird, and I'm not bragging, but I just do want to share this because it's factually true. I remember reading it when I was younger, but I didn't know if it was true, and now I know. I had a heart attack 8 months ago, and then recently, since then, I went vegan, and I've lost 60 pounds. So
60.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't try to do it. It wasn't about like I want to look different or whatever. It was simply like I don't want to fucking die again. So they were like, you know, if you go vegan, plant-based, it tends to be good for cholesterol and shit. And my daughter's been vegan for like 3 years prior to that, and so she was always trying to get me to join up and stuff. And I was like, no, I like milk too much. I love milk. I suck every dick of a cow, and.
I don't think that's how you get milk, but you know,
Might be,
you're the guy, so go ahead.
Might be why I had the heart attack. So,
well, whatever you're putting in had more cholesterol than you expected.
Truly, way too thick. So, my kid's in the hospital with me the day after, like morning after I had the heart attack, and the doctors were great. Like they take care of me. It was a very bad heart attack. They told me when it happened, they're like, this was a widowmaker. Doctor who was working on me goes, you're a comic book guy. He's going, you'll love this. This heart attack that you're having right now, we call it the widowmaker. And I was like, why? And he's like, because in 80% of the cases of 100% blockage like you have, the patient always dies. He's going, but you're going to be in the 20% because I'm good at my job. And he disappeared into my crotch and made magic.
If I had a nickel.
Yes.
For every time someone disappeared into my crotch.
And made magic. I know. That's how they do it. In order to get to your heart, they puncture your groin area, and they feed a tube up your femoral artery and look at your heart. So they looked up into my LADs, the artery goes across the front, and it was 100% blocked, man. Like, meaning cholesterol it prevented any blood flow from coming through whatsoever. And when they told me that, he's like, you had 100% blockage, man. You had a lot of cholesterol in your diet. And I was like, fuck, man. Ooh, Hostess Twinkies. And then I remembered that I was raised poor. So I was like, ooh, Little Debbie Swiss Delights. And, and so it was...
you get the generic black and white box that just
my mom was like,
on it.
This is 50 cents. Eat a whole box of it. So it was a weird, wild time, but the doctor saved my life and stuff, put a stent in there and whatnot. And so after that, the next morning in the hospital, the nutritionist came in and said, look, I ain't telling you what to do, but with cholesterol you got, going plant-based might be the move. And my kid was right there, and she's like, do it, one of us. And, I was like, look, I love animals like you, but this wouldn't be about me, trying to save the world. This is me trying to save myself. She's like, whatever reason you do it for is fine. So I went vegan, and my kid, fucking loves it. I'm a big get for the vegan community, because this fucker used to eat a whole cow.
Yeah.
And now look at him, he won't touch a cow. He loves a cow, So
I'd imagine it'd be like Charlton Heston speaking for PETA or something.
It would. It would be, think about, I guess, what would be a modern day equivalent? It would be, fuck it. No. Yeah, it would be like me going vegan, essentially.
You are the example now.
I am the example.
Is there any other steps that you could impart to people to keep yourself, that you're using to keep yourself healthy, mentally, physically, that kind of stuff?
Nobody wants to hear it because they're like, oh, fuck. Nobody wants to be told how to live their life and stuff. But, if there's somebody who's in a position to receive information, not judge it, and be like, maybe that'll be useful for me later on and stuff, here you go. Going vegan, weight just fucking drops off of you. A lot of people are like, wow, you've worked so hard and shit to lose weight. I have not worked hard at all. At all. I changed nothing except my diet. It's not like I increased my exercise output or something like that, or I'm benching or anything like that. I do, oddly enough, when the weight comes off, you can do more, so I do wind up doing more exercise. Mm-hmm. But that didn't have as much to do with it as diet, man. If you just go plant-based, and it's not all, I don't eat fucking salad, I don't eat kale, I'm a vegan, but I fucking hate vegetables. So, it's possible. If you're sitting out there going, I fucking hate vegetables, I'm living proof that you can be a vegan and not have to eat vegetables. Veggie Grill, I spent half my life at Veggie Grill. I went there right before this and shit like that. I was eating my fucking Beyond Burger and nachos and whatnot. That's my diet. I ate a burger and nachos every day, and I lost 60 fucking pounds, man. And I don't want to sound like Jared from Subway for obvious reasons, but...
Kevin, Ixnay, Eric J.
But that being said, of the same diet, I eat the same meal every day, and that kind of helped the weight fall off as well. Also, I don't eat 3 times a day anymore.
How many times?
Once.
Really?
Yeah, I won't eat breakfast. Breakfast, I feel, is propaganda and a lot of hype. They're like, gotta eat a breakfast, start your day. Bullshit. They're always like, you gotta put in energy. The body's a car. The body's not a fucking car. The body is an oil refinery. And basically, when you eat energy, you either use it right away, the body, you've got one of those great bodies that refines it right away and turns that food into energy, or you have a body like mine which stores all that energy, and that's all I was stored energy. So now, when people go no, you need fucking food in the morning, no, you don't. I have more than enough food to cover me for the rest of my life. I don't have to eat food, and my body will still be eating cake and steak from years ago that I've been storing away in my ass and my gut and shit like that. So I've learned that I don't have to eat a breakfast. I try to make it as long into the day as I can, around noonish or 1 o'clock. And I'll eat a good meal. I'll go to Veggie Grill normally, and I'll eat like Mondo Nachos and Beyond Burger. And then I don't really eat for the rest of the day. I'm never hungry. I don't feel deprived and shit like that. Just kind of retrained my thinking. And it really makes me appreciate eating more than I ever did. Like before, it was just an orgy of food of like, I was Jabba the Hutt. Just like, give me a girl in a metal bikini. Yes, exactly. A little bit of Salacious Crumb action. That's
hey,
Jason.
dude, I'll live under your gut if you want.
You can't take that job. Jason Mewes has that job.
Well, I'll be the guy that's whispering, oh, dude.
Yes, you could be the Bib Fortuna.
There you go. Yep,
absolutely. Yep. I know all the references. So yeah, I went from being less energetic to more energetic and stuff. And I always hated listening to people who lost weight. You know, and I'm not pushing on anybody, but if you're interested, that's definitely the easiest way to go. And it won't cost you anything except giving up, you know, some of the food that you like. But I don't miss anything. Like, to this day, I'm not sitting there going, fuck, man, I'd suck dick for some milk. Like, not at all. I'm fine. Like, I ate so much of it and enjoyed so much of it, like, I'm fine to not have any more.
Yeah, that Pulp Fiction line always comes to mind. It's like, the bacon tastes good.
Yes.
Pork chops taste good.
It's true. But I remember what they taste like, and I'll never forget. And I just like living more. So
yeah, good point. Was there any like specific food that like really surprised you? Like, man, I fucking love this.
Chickpeas. I'd never eaten a chickpea in my life, and one day I ate a chickpea. I was like, "You're fucking kidding me! This exists?" Like, I had no idea. And then in the vegan world, they use chickpeas to make a bunch of shit.
Oh,
like,
sure.
You know, form them into stuff. They're like, this could be a burger or whatever the fuck. And they're
like the McRib of the
world. Yeah, pretty much. So that was the discovery that I had no idea would enjoy so much.
So what I like to ask people that have become successful, was there one piece of advice or something someone said to you early on in your career that caused like a paradigm shift and you've always remembered it?
Yeah, absolutely. Hands down. And it's not even like, I got to think about it. I remember the paradigm shift. It was my sister. My sister's 5 years older than me to the week. I was born August 2nd, 1970. She was born August 10th, 1965. My brother was born August 2nd, 1966. So I was born on my brother's birthday. My brother and I share the same birthday. But if you look at the dates, we were all born in August, which means my parents loved a fucking November.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, well, it's November again.
Oh, yeah, they're like, we lost another election, and they went and fucked and stuff. So we were relatively close in age. They were close to each other. They were like Irish twins, they called them, and they hung out and went to school together and stuff. I was the younger baby brother. So my sister was the first person to introduce me to writing. Writing without being told to write in school.
Sure.
I found a composition notebook in her room under her bed, and I opened it, and it had a crude drawing of her and her friends. Not crude like they were sucking each other's tits, but crude like because she was 10 years old and she couldn't draw that much. But I could understand who it was and shit. So I said, what's this? And my sister goes, oh, I'm writing a book. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I'm writing a book, an adventure about me and my friends. We find a secret door and we go on an adventure. And, you know, she was 10, I was 5. And when you're 5, you think you know everything and shit. And so I was trying to put my sister in her place. I was trying to mansplain to her in 1975. And I said, you can't just write a book. You have to ask the government for permission. And she was like, why do you think that? I was like, because we have library cards that say U.S. government on it, and that's where the books come from. And she goes, that's not true. I was piecing it together. Yeah. I didn't have all the information and shit. So she goes, you know, yes, the books in the library look like the books that you're used to, but like they start as this. Somebody writes them down or they type them, and then one day maybe this book will look like that book in the library. But she goes, you don't have to ask anybody for permission to write a book or create. If you want to write something, you could just write it. You never have to ask for permission. So I was 5, and that stuck in my head. I was like, all right, like I thought I knew the world. She gave me a new piece of information when I was like, all right, so I could do this book writing if I want to. And I didn't do it at age 5, but at age 13, I wrote my first book. Entered a young novel writers competition and wrote a whole fucking book and shit because she planted the idea. She made me think I could be a writer. I loved Saturday Night Live when it first started airing, and of course even now, but I was, as much as I loved the cast, I was more attracted to the writers, the people that came up with the sketches. I never saw myself as an out front person. Like when I realized that writing was a thing and I realized I could do it, I was like, ooh, that's how I could fit into that world. I could be somebody who writes stuff. Years later, my sister said the most important thing to me that put me on the road to like who I am today. I had seen Slacker, Richard Linklater's Slacker, and I was full of piss and vinegar and shit. And mind you, like if I had seen Slacker now as opposed to then, there was no internet then. Like, so I saw Slacker and it made me want to do what Richard Linklater did. It made me want to make a Slacker, right? So I went toward film. But if the internet had existed, I wouldn't have made a film. I would have gone home and recorded a podcast about how much I loved Slacker and stuff. So on one hand, like, and I don't think that necessarily would have been the worst thing. I think I'm more of an oral storyteller anyway. Like I think of myself as a storyteller. Telling stories in film is harder for me because film is not my first language. So I always think of it as like trying to communicate in Barcelona while only having 2 years of Spanish in high school and stuff. So when I go to make a film, I always kind of have one arm tied behind my back. But if I could just talk to you, if I could just do a podcast or stand up, a one-man show, oh my God, like I can keep you, in the palm of my hands. So I found a path in film. I see this film, I'm like, maybe this is something I could do. He made a story about him and his friends in their town. Maybe I could do that sort of thing. So I hadn't told many people because I didn't come from a very encouraging world. Like we came from a world nowadays, you know, parents are like, you can do anything to their kids. Right?
Yeah,
like,
what the hell is that all about?
I raised my kid that way. I was like, hey man, figure out what you love to do and then figure out how to get paid for it, and that's the secret to life. But back when we were kids, they didn't tell us that sort of thing. It was like you go to college and you get a job and fucking blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And my father was like a wonderful guy, but he was not, we didn't come from a very encouraging environment. My father was the kind of guy who was like, see that mountain? Never climb it. Like, you will get hurt. Read about others that do that sort of thing. So there was no real encouragement to, like, go beyond, other than, like, if you finish high school, go to college. So my sister was one of the only people who, she was always kind of artsy, and she went to school, and she was the one that told me about writing. So I finally told her, I'd been keeping it quiet from everyone else. I didn't want to tell people like that. I think I could be this other thing. Scariest thing in the world. To come out in that way. Of course, it's way scarier to come out in the ways that are traditional, but it's scary to come out to any community and tell them that you are something you think you are that they don't realize you are. Yeah. You know, it's a weird moment and stuff. So I was very selective in who I shared it with. And I shared it with my sister. And I said to her, she goes, what have you been up to? I said, I saw this movie Richard Linklater made called Slacker. I went up to New York to see it, which was a big deal. We lived in New Jersey, and New York is only 45 minutes away, but we never really interacted with the city and stuff. And so the fact that we went to see a movie in the city when we had multiplexes right where we lived really said something to my sister. She's like, you went to the city to see a movie? I said, I did. And it was amazing, and it made me think, I want to be a filmmaker. So I think I want to be a filmmaker. And this is it, my sister's brilliant advice. She goes, great, be a filmmaker. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I want to be a filmmaker. And she goes, yes. So then just be a filmmaker. And I was like, yes, that's what I think. I think we're talking about the same thing. I want to be a filmmaker. She goes, no, just then be a filmmaker. And I was like, what kind of Jedi mind trick is this? And she goes, you're talking about wanting to be, how you're gonna be. She's going, don't be a filmmaker right now. You're a filmmaker, you just haven't made your film yet. With every thought you have, with every breath you take, with every move you make, and all the rest of the Police lyrics, you are a filmmaker. You have to perceive yourself as that before anybody else can do it, man. And it was an early form of like, you know, what is it? Fucking fake it till you make it, essentially.
Absolutely.
So, you know, she told me that, and I was just like, okay. And you know, remember walking away from the conversation being like, she's my older sister, so I'm like, what an asshole. Like, fucking, you know, that sounds like some Tony Robbins bullshit right there, man. Fuck that. So this is self-deluding. But the next day I gave it a shot because I'm like, you know what? Cost me nothing. It's free advice. Cost me nothing to think through this prism. And instead of thinking I want to be a filmmaker, just think I am a filmmaker. And goddamn if it didn't work. That was 26 years ago, and I'm still fucking here. And when you brought me out, you're like, he's a filmmaker. People bought it. They believed it and shit like that. So that came from her, man. Sometimes you need somebody to kind of say the right thing. She said the right thing, but it helps to surround yourself with the right people. I've always felt like, you know, if it was me going out alone, it never would have happened. Scott Mosier, a guy I met in film school, became my producer on all those early movies and stuff. He's got a movie coming out himself now. He's made the Grinch movie, the big cartoon that's fucking coming out and stuff like that. Without him as a battery, I never would have been able to do anything. I would have been a guy with a bunch of ideas that couldn't move them forward. You need to surround yourself with the right people. And the problem in this world is if you tell people that you want to step outside your box and do something you're not known for, if you want to try to be something different, if you want to try to be yourself, and they just don't know who you are yet, you will not be met with a chorus of hosannas and people being like, yes, go for it. You'll be slapped across the face with the big floppy dick of why. Of just people being like, why? Why do you think you can do that? Why are you saying this shit? Why all of a sudden you so full of yourself? Why do you think you can do this and I can't do this? Why are you being this way? The world is a crab pot. Like essentially if you rise or try to rise, climb to the surface, there are 1,000 arms and legs to pull you back down because misery loves company. And if you ascend, it's a reminder to those that didn't that they probably could have done the same thing if they'd just given it a shot, if they had any interest whatsoever and stuff. So what you got to do in life, and everybody in this room fucking knows this because they're here so far, is find not the people who are like, why? Why are you fucking doing that? Why? You find the why not people, man. So you say to them, hey, man, I'm going to step outside my box and try this thing I'm not known for doing, man. I hope it fucking works, man. You want to help me out? And they're like, yeah, why not? That sounds fun. Why not? I wasn't going to do anything else today. Why not? I was just going to jerk off. This is way better. So you find those why not people, and that's how you build your empire. And as everybody here knows, because it's the internet, the moment you step and try to do something, some anonymous person will step to you to tell you you shouldn't, you're wrong, how dare you think of yourself this way, you're fucking nothing. It's a game to some folks to just strip your dignity out from under you. That will never stop. I'm in this business 25 fucking years, and from day one, there's always somebody being like, you suck! And then right now, as I walked in, somebody was like, you suck! So it never fucking ends. There's always going to be negativity. Don't listen to it. You don't have to process that. You process it. Accept it, hear it, and fucking move on. There's always, it's going to happen. You will build a fucking cathedral to the sky. And as it spires and breaks the fucking clouds, there will still be people telling you that you did it wrong. Just never fucking listen. You have a voice inside. That's what you're responding to. That's what got you this far. That's the voice that fucking talks to you that makes you think you are who you are. Others will tell you, like, that voice is crazy. You're full of yourself. You can't fucking be these things. Bullshit. That voice inside, I don't know what it is. I remember when I was a kid, I saw the Muppet movie, right, when I was a little boy. And I loved, in the beginning, Kermit the Frog singing that fucking great song, The Rainbow Connection. There's a powerful line in that song where he says, have you been half asleep and have you heard voices? I've heard them calling my name. And when I was a young Catholic boy, I was like, oh, the frog is singing about Jesus. But he wasn't singing about Jesus at all. He was singing about that voice that you have when you're a maker, when you're a creator. The voice that clicks on that just tells you it's not enough to watch others do it. It's fine. You could do it. You could suffer through others' work for a little bit. And you could even find things to enjoy, things to be inspired by in their work. But you know that you can't sit on the fucking bench. It's an ache. It calls to you and makes you want to go out and do things that you've never fucking done before and stuff like that. Can be scary, but obviously if we're all in this room, we've gotten past that initial fear. The only other fear you ever have to get through in life is just that fear of others like fucking putting you down. But just accept that. Accept that it's going to happen, and accept that it's just white noise in the conversation and whatnot. And when you do something, whatever it is, whether it succeeds or fails, because I've done both things. I've had wonderful successes that I didn't deserve, and I've had crushing failures that I felt weren't my own fault, but whatever the fuck. Like, you just got to deal with them both. But when that happens, these are the only two things I've ever said to myself over fucking 25 years that made everything kind of make sense. The prism through which to put it when you're in the moment. I always say to myself, you wanted this. Like, my God, you wanted this. You changed the world because you wanted this. You made people do things that they didn't necessarily feel comfortable wanting to do. Nothing sexual, mind you, but like getting on a plane and flying to Vancouver to be in a fucking movie. You made people change their lives for this fucking moment or whatever it is. So appreciate it. Like, just because right now it didn't work out the way you wanted it to work and shit, you did fucking land the plane. It just didn't land it the way you wanted to. But you wanted this, remember that. And the second thing I always tell myself is, what was the alternative? Like, seriously, in so many things, you're like, what was the alternative if I didn't try this? Even if you're sitting there mired in failure, which I have been. Like, fucking last movie I made was Yoga Hosers, man. Nobody's heard of it. There's failure. So even when I was sitting in the midst of it, like just fucking with critics shitting on the movie and box office looking miserable and whatnot, I just said to myself, what was the alternative? To have not made the movie that never would have stood. It would have hurt. It would have like eaten me away like a cancer inside my whole life going, what would have happened if we did that? We could have done it. And it's not like me like wishing upon a star. This was something that I could achieve. I've done that before. Making a movie, that's like, it's hard, but it's not impossible. Yeah. So to let it go just because I was like, what if people don't like it? It's not why I started my career. I didn't start my career going, fuck, I hope people like this shit. I made Clerks because I was like, I just want to see it. I just wanted to see me and my friends reflected on the big screen. I'd seen so many movies and followed so many adventures where people were just like, you know, they were fun. The movies were great, but I never saw me and my friends up there. Like representation. I know it sounds weird to be a middle-aged white guy talking about representation, but there was a period like 25 years ago where I didn't see me or you or all of these people on a screen. They didn't know us at all. So like when I started making movies, I was like, that's who I'm gonna write about. I'm gonna write about me and my friends. And like, we make Mallrats in '95, movie comes out and people are like, this is terrible, and it flops. We made it for $5 million, it only made $2 million at the box office, was supposed to kill my career. Meanwhile, this is the movie that most people come up to me and be like, I am Brody Bruce, man. Like fucking, I love Mallrats when it came out, like it hit people weird because it's a movie that presupposes everyone in the world knows who Stan Lee is. And in 1995, that wasn't the case. But in 2018, everybody fucking knows who Stan Lee is. Oh, yeah. So the movie aged well. It's another very important lesson. Sometimes you feel like you fail in the moment. Sometimes it feels like, oh, fuck, that was a mistake. Just wait. Time heals all wounds. You don't know. The story's not told in the moment. It's told over a lifetime. So I sat there the morning we got the fucking grosses on Mallrats. The producer, Jim Jacks, called up and said, hey, man, I got the grosses from last night when we opened everywhere. Right. Opened on 500 screens. I said, great. How much did we make? He goes, $400,000. I was like, on what screen was that? And he goes, that's all of the screens. And I was like, what does that mean? He goes, it's over. We're dead. So the financial story of Mallrats in that moment was told and written and done. And so in that moment, I was like, fuck, do I have to give somebody $3 million back? Like, I don't know what to do in this situation. Right. But over time, like, that movie aged insanely well. The only one who remembers it didn't do well at the box office is me. Everyone else you talk to in the world, they're like, no, man, that movie did well. I have it on DVD. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with anything. Like, but thank you for your support. So you never know, man. Even when you do something and it don't work out in the moment, and it feels like a crushing fucking failure, it's still sometimes worth it. Look, it's still always worth it because at the end of the day, whatever you made is fucking yours. And you're already ahead of the game of everybody else. You know how many people in the world can never say that? This is my thing that represents me. The best that most people could do, and this is a wonderful way to do it, is have a child and be like, this is what represents me. But as makers, as creators, we get to go one step further. And we're like, kids are nice, but that doesn't tell my story. That tells one aspect of it. Here is my fucking story. And even if it never connects with anybody, even if the true audience or the massive audience you're hoping for to find it doesn't fucking find it, you have something that you created, whole cloth, that is yours, that 90% of the people in this world will never make or try to do themselves, and they fucking envy you for it. They would love to be you. They would love to be the person that has enough confidence in themselves to put themselves forward, to make something, to put their voice out there. Cherish that. You're fucking gifted. Everyone in this room is fucking gifted, man. Make sure you use that gift. And I'm not like fucking Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan where I'm like, earn it, motherfucker. Like, but you have the gift. You have this ability to speak your mind, and right now, particularly at this moment in time, about anything you want. I'm not just talking about politics. I'm talking mostly about fucking movies and shit like that. Kevin, we have to stop.
We do.
I was just telling them to use their voice.
Finish your sentence.
And you cut me off.
No, listen. I'm not trying to be the bad guy.
No, it's true.
But someone's backstage going, get the fuck out of here.
Hold on.
I'm listen to this forever.
Number one, he's a wonderful man. Number two, they have a full day of programming, and we've already gone well over our time. But it is important, kids. Everybody in this room, when I say kids, I'm sure most of you are adults as well and stuff. But everyone, to me, I'm 48. You're all fucking kids. Make sure, man, that you use your platforms and put yourself out there. You know, if you got a platform or you're just sniping on other people, that's fine. Go with God. But that doesn't do it. That's not going to ever get that thing off your chest. Let them know who you are before you leave this world. Share. Tell them, because one of the most powerful things we can do is dopey things. And you sit there going, hey, man, I play video games. How's that fucking help? Because I guarantee you, and you've probably seen in your comments threads, there's somebody in this world who's like, watching you play that game, listening to you here talk about that game, watching you make that movie, listening to your podcast saved my life, and here's a story about it, man. Could you imagine that? Like, you get the power to tell your own stories, and that should be enough. But could you imagine if something you did fucking touched somebody enough to stop them from doing something detrimental to themselves? That's not a made-up fucking story. That happens, and I'm sure it's happened to a lot of people in this room. Keep doing that. That's important work.
Kevin, come here. Kevin Smith, everybody!